When VP Kamala Harris introduced her presidential bid, the internet blew up with memes to support her.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
That whiplash tone shift could be the preview of some very interesting presidential announcements. I didn't just slip on a banana peel into a kiddie pool full of pudding. This afternoon, I ordered airstrikes on Syria.
Now, it was supposed to mean that Kamala Harris was able to win back the youth vote. But did she really? Because according to CNN's own senior data reporter, Harry Enten, presumptive Democratic nominee Kamala Harris is struggling to gain traction among young voters despite a recent influx of internet memes. Check this out.
He's up by just 9 points. You may make the argument that was better than Biden was doing before he got out. But compared to that Democratic baseline, where Democrats have historically in presidential elections, at least this century, been carrying that young vote by 20 or more percentage points, she is way down from that. So if this is unique support among young voters, I would like to know what non-unique support is. Is it even worse than this?
Is she doing better than Biden was, though?
She was doing slightly better. Maybe Biden was up by, like 6 on average or 5. This is maybe slightly better, but this is not game-changing stuff, Mr. Berman.
All right, what have we seen in terms of motivation?
Yeah, so, the other thing is we talk about vote choice, right? But let's also talk about motivation, right? Because it's not just who you would support, it's whether or not you'd come out to the polls. And this, I think, is rather interesting. Do Democrats say they're more motivated to turn out after Biden left the race? Well, we do see a significant portion of Democrats who say yes, 39%. The thing I was interested in was it disproportionately younger voters who said that they were more likely to turn out or more motivated to turn out. And what we see here is it's 42%. Not a big difference between 42 and 39%. So this idea, again, that the vice president has unique potential to dig in and get young voters to turn out, John, it's just not there in the numbers despite all the internet memes that are going around.
So yeah, as CNN senior data reporter Harry Enten put it, support for the presumptive Democratic nominee Kamala Harris is just not there among young voters.
You can tell that Biden dropping out was a good decision for the Democrats because Trump hates it. On Sunday, he posted this. So we are forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden. He polls badly after a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud? Adding.
In fact, according to a new poll, Donald Trump is even crushing Kamala Harris among younger voters.
Trump also took one final shot at Biden's age. Tomorrow, crooked Joe Biden's going to wake up and forgot that he dropped out of the race today. Then yesterday morning, he posted, it's a new day, and Joe Biden doesn't remember quitting the race yesterday. Do you remember making that joke yesterday? Joe Biden's memory is so bad, he doesn't remember what he just said. And Joe Biden's memory is so bad, he doesn't remember what he just said. And when you think about it, folks, it just occurred to me, Joe Biden's memory is so bad. Now, I'm a natural.
In fact, the poll conducted by Quinnipiac University between July 19th and the 21st found that among the 18 to 34 age group, Donald Trump fared better than Kamala Harris, with 58% of those surveyed supporting the former president compared to Kamala Harris's 39%. Or as Quinnipiac University analyst Tim Malloy put it, the dramatic reset at the top of the Democratic ticket does very little to move the race as Vice President Kamala Harris enters the fray with numbers similar to President Biden. Well, I personally know some kids turning 21 and just recently changed their party to Republican, and they're now voting for Donald Trump. Now, what about you guys? And that's even with a surprising endorsement from British pop star Charli XCX, who has a huge following among Gen Z. Charli XCX said about the presumptive Democratic nominee, Kamala is brat.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is my certified gratitude that empowers me to do this. Your move, Tepper.
Basically referring to her album titled Brat, released in June. But I'm not sure if that's a compliment for everybody. Because see, when speaking on the TikTok series Off the Record, Charlie XCX described what Brat meant to her, saying, "You're just like the girl who's a little messy and likes to party and maybe says some dumb things sometimes."
So it's the idea that we're all kind of brat and Vice President Harris is brat? I don't...
Well,
I don't know if
two
you're
of-
Brad. I think
right,
you aspire
two
to
of us-
be Brad.
right,
Jake. You don't
right.
just become Brad.
Oh, okay.
You have to try.
You can
All right.
work at it.
I will aspire to be brat.
Well, my good friend Jake may aspire to be Brat, but according to the news, Stephen Colbert is Brat, actually.
And as it pertains to Kamala Harris, well, people have been digging up all sorts of sound bites from the presumptive Democratic nominee, including the very controversial one of her calling 18 to 24-year-olds stupid. Check this out.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
Sure enough, people predicted this was going to be happening to her, that her video calling 18 to 24-year-olds stupid will come out and it's going to hurt her. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now, guys. When you put it all together, I don't know, doesn't her sudden hype feel super artificial to you? And wait until we get to the Trump comparison, guys. Again, CNN's own senior data reporter Harry Enten warned the Democratic Party that even if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes its presidential nominee, it will be facing a former President Donald Trump who has never been more popular. Check this out.
Take a look here just first at the favorable views of Donald Trump. We know that Donald Trump has historically been unpopular, but take a look now. After the Republican National Convention, in the ABC News Ipsos poll, he recorded his highest ever favorable rating at 40%. That's not a one-off. Take a look at the Quinnipiac University poll, 46%. That's the highest ever in that pollster. The fact is, Donald Trump is more popular now than he ever has been before. So yes, Democrats can make this switcheroo, but they're still going to have to beat Donald Trump, a Donald Trump who is stronger, Sarah, than he has ever been before.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enten warned the Democratic Party that even if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes its presidential nominee, it will be facing a former President Donald Trump who has never been more popular. Plus, you know the main thing that they're forgetting about former President Trump? The fact that polls always underestimate voter support for Trump. Y'all remember 2016? All the polls claim that Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton's chances of winning against Republican nominee Donald Trump were around 90%. Well, we all know how that went. Some voters were shy about their support for Trump. As a result, they didn't always admit their voting intentions to the pollsters. What they did, though, is showed up at the voting booth. All the details of the Trump difference in this video right here, guys, so definitely stick around. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. But first, let's talk about the young voter support Democrats were really banking on when they announced that Kamala Harris was going to run. Well, turns out it's just not there. CNN's own Harry Enten recently shared some interesting points about Kamala Harris's struggle to connect with young voters, even though she's popping up all over internet memes these days. Now, as you guys saw in the CNN exit poll comparison, President Biden won voters under the age of 35 by 21 points in 2020, but Harris is leading former President Donald Trump by significantly less right now, just by 9 points. Enten mentioned that Harris might actually be doing a little bit better than Biden with young pollsters before he decided not to run again. But really, no matter how they try to put lipstick on this pig, Kamala's popularity still is not where you would expect it to be, especially compared to other Democrats over the years. He even threw out there one standout line from Enten from the discussion was, if this is unique support among young voters, I would like to know what her non-unique support is. Is it even worse than this? He also brought up another poll that looked at how pumped Democrats are now that Biden is out of the race. Well, as it turns out, 39% of Democrats said that they would be more motivated to vote, while 55% said that they were not. And when you break it down by age, among those 18 to 29, 42% were a little bit more motivated, while 49% just aren't feeling it. Wrapping up, Enten was pretty clear with anchor John Berman saying this idea again that the vice president has unique potential to dig in and get young voters to turn out. It's just not there in the numbers despite all the internet memes that are going around. So yeah, don't let those internet memes fool you guys, because the way it's shaping up, there's no stopping former President Trump right now. In fact, a recent poll even showed Donald Trump crushing Kamala Harris among younger voters. More on that later, but first, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button for the channel and also hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of our future updates like this one. Appreciate the support, you guys. A recent Quinnipiac University poll shows Donald Trump is outpacing Kamala Harris with younger voters. So yeah, Trump is just crushing Kamala Harris in the polls, even among younger voters. Among those 18 to 34, 58% are leaning toward Trump, with Harris trailing at 39%. And if we look at Trump versus Biden, Trump holds a 17-point lead with the same group. Tim Malloy from Quinnipiac pointed out that swapping Biden for Harris hasn't shaken things up. Her numbers are looking a lot like Biden's, or as he put it, the dramatic reset at the top of the Democrat ticket does little to move the race as Vice President Kamala Harris enters the fray with numbers similar to President Biden. Now, this poll, which spoke to 1,376 adults and has a margin error of 2.6%, sounds a warning bell for the Harris campaign, especially with Joe Biden's approval ratings dipping among the young crowd, basically due to his handling, or should I say mishandling, of the situation between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, which has yielded an 81% disapproval rating amongst voters younger than 35, according to CNN. Now, seeing this, Harris's team isn't sitting back. They've started connecting with groups like the College Democrats of America and Voters of Tomorrow to try and boost her appeal among younger voters. But I don't know. It may just be too little too late for the Democratic Party at this point. What do you think? Because just look at this, guys. CNN senior data reporter Harry Enten pulled out several polls on the actual show demonstrating that Donald Trump's national approval rating is higher than it's ever been during his time in politics, and that beating him in November will be a challenge for Harris if she ends up facing him. The way Enten described it, yes, Democrats can make this switcheroo, but they're still going to have to beat Donald Trump. A Donald Trump who is stronger than he's ever been before. He then pointed out some new polls about the former president's rising popularity after the very recent Republican National Convention. He kicked things off with, historically, Donald Trump hasn't been all that popular, but look at him now. According to the latest ABC News Ipsos poll, he's hit the highest ever favorable rating at 40%. That's not a one-off. He didn't stop there. Mentioning the other poll, he continued, take a look at the Quinnipiac University poll, 46%. That's the highest ever in that pollster. Point is, Donald Trump is more popular now than he's ever been before. The host then shifted the conversation to how Trump might stack up in a race against Kamala Harris, especially compared to his previous run against Biden. He showed that Trump currently has the edge over Kamala in national popular vote polling, whereas he was polling below Biden during the 2020 election, which he lost. Now, diving into those numbers, Enten said, if we take a look at the national average, what do we see? We see Donald Trump up by 1. That's a within the margin race. That's a close race. Reflecting on the last election, he added, so last time around, when Joe Biden barely won in the Electoral College, he actually won the national popular vote by 4 points. He also pointed out that at this point, Donald Trump is running 5 points better than he was 4 years ago against Joe Biden. Bottom line, whether you look at the favorability ratings, whether you look at the horse race polling, we see Donald Trump is doing significantly better than he was doing 4 years ago at this point. He ended with some advice for Harris, now the likely Democratic nominee after Biden's exit. He said, Kamala Harris is going to have to do better than this, of course, if she wants to win the popular vote. But more than that, if she wants to win the Electoral College vote, where she'll likely have to outperform how she's done nationally. And don't forget, guys, historically, all these polls, they kind of have a blind spot for how large the Trump support really is. I mean, we all remember 2016, where various headlines littered the news claiming that Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton's chances of winning against Republican nominee Donald Trump were around 90%. After looking back at what went wrong with the polls in 2016, a few key issues stood out. Some of these were simply out of the pollsters' hands. For instance, the American Association of Public Opinion Research pointed out that some voters did not decide whose name to write on their ballot until the last minute, making them difficult to account for. Also, some Trump supporters were shy about their support for Trump. But there were also some critical mistakes in how the polls were conducted. Matin Miramezi from Generation Lab mentioned that pollsters didn't factor in educational representation. So it turns out the polls missed a big chunk of Donald Trump's base, white, non-college educated voters, mainly because people with more education are more likely to answer surveys. Even with these insights, the polls in the 2020 election ended up having the highest error margin in 40 years, once again underestimating the support for Trump. So yeah, to be honest, I'm not exactly shaking in my boots because of Kamala Harris, but what about you guys? Do you think Kamala actually stands a chance against Trump, all things considered? Drop your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys. I'll make sure to read them before the next one. I also recommend you guys check out our other video on the California cop who went viral sharing his reason why he's not going to vote for Kamala Harris. Definitely a must watch after this one, so click on that one right after this. And hey, I just want to thank y'all so much for watching and liking this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.